we're going to need quite a few pans today. Sorry, you're going to have to do a few more dishes. But that's just because we want to do a few things separately and then it all comes together, okay? And I tried to time this to be as even as possible to make it really flavorful and delicious. So there's going to be a few moments where we have two pans going at one time. All right. I simplified the spices that are typically in palak paneer because there's a lot of spices, but you know, if you didn't have them, spices get very expensive. So we're going with a garam masala, but you can add cardamom, you can add cinnamon. There's a few other things you can add if you'd like, if you have them. So, you know, just Indian spices are complicated, and that's what's so fun about it is they throw a little of this, a little of that, a little of this, a little of that, and it makes something really good. And if you know the basics of what Indian spices are, then typically if you have a little more of something, a little less of something, it's going to work out great. It may not be the exact flavor profile you were going for, but it'll still taste really good. So I just want you to get comfortable with some of these. And garam masala is a blend of spices. So that's why I chose it, because it's a little bit of a go-to instead of having to buy tons of spices. All right, so we're going to be using that in both the rice and the palak paneer because I decided why not have more flavor, okay? You could have a very simple rice if you want, but a lot of time it's made with some spices in it, and I really like it. Oh, and cumin was another one that you can definitely add more of. There is some cumin in garam masala, but you can always add more. All right, so to start off, we're going to be needing broth. So if you have bouillon at home, make sure you get some water boiling for the broth, okay? But you could also, we're gonna have a pot of water that we're gonna get boiling for the for the spinach. You could also always just take some of that hot water and mix in bouillon once it's boiling. So that's starting out. Grab yourself a big pot or a medium to large pot, fill it up 3/4 of the way. We're gonna get that to a boil because we just want to get it ready for the spinach that we're going to blanch later on. All right, so that's something to get ready. All right, so next up, we're going to be rinsing our rice, and actually we're going to soak it a little bit, okay? And when you soak it, it just takes off some of the excess starch that naturally comes on rice. And whenever you cook Indian food, you don't really want it to be starchy rice. You want it to be very light and fluffy, okay? So we're going to be making, let's see here, about 1 cup of rice, okay? So grab yourself a pot, and I'm going to pour the cup of rice right into the pot that I'm going to use, and I'll just cover it with water and we'll let it soak for a little bit, okay? And then we'll strain it out, and then we'll be cooking it later on, but might as well just use the same pot. And you know what? I have a jasmine rice here, and I wanted basmati. I love this basmati rice, by the way. Do you guys know Lundberg? A really high quality organic company. They're super nice people. I know some of them well personally, and they make some really great rice. So now we've got the pot of water boiling. We've got our rice soaking, okay? So now we're going to be getting 2 pans ready, all right, for our rice and our palak paneer, okay? And so actually in the beginning here, we can do it all in one pan, and then we're gonna finagle it, all right? So let's start off by chopping a few of these ingredients and getting them ready so that we can pour them all in at one time. So let's start with our onion, all right? So I'm just grabbing a yellow onion, and we're gonna use half for the palak paneer, half for the basmati rice, all right? So don't forget your knife skills. Pointer finger and thumb on the blade, wrapping your fingers around the handle, all right? Just good reminder. And then bear claw with your other hand. And we're going to slice this in half to the top, from the top to the bottom, down to the root, all right? And so the root is on both sides. We'll slice off the top, get that, put that away, and I'm just going to use my measuring cup for now as a little compost bin. Why not? Take off the outer layers, anything that's floppy. Pull that off. Perfect. You always want just nice, firm, high quality layers here that you're going to be eating. There we go. And let's go ahead and dice these, all right? So I'm just going to slice in towards the root, almost to the end of the onion. And then I'm going to go sideways one time just to give it one extra little slice. And then finally, top to bottom. And just make it a nice, clean dice. And we'll do that with both halves. Next up, we're going to do the same thing with the other half. Perfect. Go sideways. And then go the opposite direction. And there we go. Best way to cut an onion to keep it clean. Keep those juices low so you're not crying. Voila. And then compost all the extras. Once you're done with that, we're going to be moving to our garlic and our ginger and getting those ready. So I love garlic. I love flavor. I'm going to be doing at least 3 to 4 large cloves, which I think is a lot. Okay, so if you don't want to go as crazy with your garlic, then you can do maybe something like 2 cloves, depending on how big they are. All right, but like I said, I'm going to go 3 to 4 because I love garlic. These are huge, so maybe I'll stick with 3. And then I'm going to slice off the bottom that's connected to the root. Get that out of the way. Pull off all the skin. And I'm going to be mincing this garlic to make it really small. All right, and if I'm going way too fast, you guys let me know. But you're all great cooks. Usually you keep up just fine. I know you all well. Wow, this garlic, this skin, was around 3 little pieces that infused together. So it's like 3 little cloves that were in one. So funny. Never seen that before. Cute. I feel like that's what happens in the summer. You get just so many fun different kinds of foods that are all shapes and sizes because it's when they're the happiest. So they'll do all sorts of crazy things. In the winter, they're always very uniform because it's a little more GMO'd, right? It's not as natural because it's not the season. So something to consider. All right. Smashing my garlic, just make it a little easier to break apart. And then I'm going to go through it with my knife, keeping that technique in mind of how to hold my knife. Slicing from one side and then going through the other side. All right, and just running that knife through a bunch of times. We're going to do it with all of them. All right, so just mincing this garlic nice and small. There's nothing better than fresh garlic, especially in Indian food. You want to make sure you have it super fresh. It makes all the difference with the flavors. Same with ginger. So important we have it fresh for this meal. We're going to be having another class, though, in a month or so that is very different. We're going to be using dried garlic and dried ginger. And we're going to make one of my favorite, absolute favorite dishes called Moroccan chicken. All right, so I just grabbed a nub of ginger, okay? So we want a teaspoon or a little bit more of minced ginger going in this. So I'm just going to slice off some of the skin. You can use a spoon or a peeler to take the skin off of ginger, okay? But I like using my knife. I'm just going to keep using my knife. So I'm just going to carefully skim the outside of the ginger, and then I'll eventually be mincing this into about a teaspoon or so of ginger, okay? So if you're not sure, just take your best guess, and it's probably going to be perfect that way. All right, so just slicing this off. All right, you guys, so by the way, my water's boiling, so I'm just going to turn it down right now, but keep it covered so that I can bring it back up to a boil. But I always like to just have it ready to rock so it's really easy later on. And I'm just finishing mincing my ginger, getting it nice and small. That way if I ever were to bite into a piece of this ginger, it wouldn't be too powerful. It should be small enough that it would be okay to bite into a little piece, and that's the gauge that you want. Same with the garlic. All right, so we're just getting some good knife skills in today. Lots of chopping. And voila. All right, so I've got my garlic, I've got my ginger, and slice it around the sides. I'm gonna avoid the seeds because I don't like it super hot. And if I want to, I can always add a little cayenne, but I don't like too many seeds in mine. All right, and then I'm just gonna use the back of my knife and pull off any extra pith or seeds I have, and I'm just gonna do it right into the sink here so that they don't get on my workspace, because again, it can be very potent, those seeds. All right, and then I'm going to mince it just like the ginger. Mince up this jalapeno. All right, voila. Going one direction, then the other. And these don't have to be super small, but just a nice small dice is great. They're gonna cook pretty quickly. So I'm gonna go ahead and strain my rice now just to get it out of this pot. All right, and I'm just gonna put it in a bowl on the side so that I can do some sauteing in this pot, and then we're gonna be adding the rice back in. All right, so just pulling the rice out of the pot using my spatula here. In my rice pot and my larger deep side pan here, all right, I would use a medium pot or something like this, okay? So just like Vicki and I were talking about, this deeper but wide pan is great for this, all right? And we're gonna turn on the heat on both of these to medium, high heat. Keep in mind that pans might be different thicknesses. I have one here that's stainless steel, okay, all clad stainless steel, and then I have another one, or no, made in stainless steel, and then I have another one that's copper, all right? So they are gonna work differently, so I need to keep an eye on both of them. But what I'm gonna do is when they get hot, and I add a little water and it sizzles, that's always how I know, then I'm gonna grab some oil, all right? And you can use coconut oil or olive oil. I'm gonna use coconut oil because it goes really well with this meal. And then I'm gonna add a little oil in, and we're gonna do half and half, onion on one side, onion in the other, all right? So half an onion in one, half an onion in the other. So I'm just gonna scoop maybe half of a tablespoon or so into each pot. And I'm pretty confident they're ready to rock right now, so go ahead and do that. All right, so they're both warm. I just added oil to each, and then I'm gonna add about half the onion to one, and half the onion to the other. If you're not sure about exactly how much is which, go ahead and add, you know, if you were to add more to one than the other, then put it in the palak paneer pot, which is the wider of the two. All right, so there we go. The onion is mostly for flavor in the rice, but in the palak paneer, it is part of the whole show, so. All right, so now I have them both sizzling. It's sizzling pretty fast, so I'm just gonna turn it down maybe to medium heat, all right, so I can control it. So next, we're going to be adding some flavors to both of these. So once the onions soften a little bit, to the palak paneer, we are going to be adding the garlic, the ginger, and the jalapeno, okay? To both of them, we are going to be adding garam masala. All right, as well as any other flavors that you decide to add alongside me, okay? So I have these ready to go. I'm just gonna keep an eye on it, give them a minute. Grab a wooden spoon, give them a little stir. Make sure they're all evenly cooking. Beautiful. All right, and once they've had a little bit of a head start, about a minute or so, we're going to be adding in the garlic and the ginger and the jalapeno to the palak paneer pot. So here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and add it. 1, 2, 3. Give them a little bit of a stir. And then I'm gonna get all my spices ready, because once these seem like they're soft and they've cooked nicely. I'm gonna add my spices in and give my spices a little toast before I then add some of the other items and the broth. All right, so that's what we're going to be doing next. So the more you add these and let them sit and cook, the more flavor that they'll get. But we don't, of course, want to overcook them. So it's nice to have everything ready to go. Okay, so giving it another little stir. Beautiful. And again, I have them on medium heat, so they're not cooking too quickly, but it smells amazing already. And once it seems like they're getting a little bit of a brown hue on the outsides and you're really getting some of those aromas, that's when we can go ahead and add the spices, okay? So I'm gonna pull out my garam masala and I'm going to measure in 1 teaspoon into each dish. 1 teaspoon garam masala into each dish, okay? So I'm at that point here. Got a lot of flavor going on. I'm gonna add a little extra cumin here. Just a dash. And then I'm gonna add about half a teaspoon of cinnamon to each, because to me, cinnamon is one of the best things in the world. And it enhances the dish quite a bit. And then that cardamom, I'll add about half of a teaspoon as well. And then I want to turn this down a little bit because we don't want to burn these spices. So now I'm going to like medium-low heat. And it's going to dry out quite a bit in the pan. Okay? And you could use a cinnamon stick instead of adding ground cinnamon. That's also an option, which is delicious. And that really infuses it nicely. I'm going to add some extra cardamom here. All right, there we go. Perfect. So I have them both drying out here. The spices are toasting, and I don't want them to toast too much, but the toast is an important part. It really wakes them up and gives them a warm, round feeling. So 30 to 60 seconds is really all you need. I'm also going to be adding some salt, all right? So I know we're throwing a lot in there, but I'm gonna add 5 to 10 shakes of salt in there, all right? And you can layer the salt, you can add more later, but let's get some salt in there to really start infusing. I'm gonna rotate it around. Perfect. And then once I really smell those spices, again, 30 to 60 seconds is plenty, we are going to be adding in a few different things. So I hope you guys are keeping up here, and I can repeat myself, but to start, once I'm smelling those spices now, so if you need some catch-up time, you can always turn the heat off, okay? And just call it good for a second. When you're ready, we're going to be adding in the broth. So into the onions for the palak paneer, I'm going to be adding half of a cup of broth. So vegetable broth, low sodium is ideal. And I actually boiled some water before this, and so I'm just going to be adding a little bit of vegetable bouillon, which I wish I had some of my homemade broth in the freezer, but I don't right now. So we're going to be using this bouillon. All right, and so I have this now on medium heat. The onions with all the spices, all the goodies, and then half of a cup of broth on medium heat in the palak paneer pan. All right, and I'm gonna turn off my heat for a second for the rice just to make sure you're keeping up, okay? Because I know my rice pot is also ready to rock, but I don't want to move too quickly here. So meanwhile, back to the rice dish. I'm gonna turn it back on, medium heat, and I'm going to add the rice in with the onions. All right, so pouring all of this in. using my spatula here to really get it all in there. Silicone spatula. We're going to be adding about 1 3/4 cups of water, okay? Actually, or broth. So if you have broth, that'll just add more flavor. All right, so I can hear my rice sizzling here. So I'm just gonna give it a little stir. And as soon as I start to smell that rice, I'm gonna go ahead and add my broth. And a little bit of that bouillon. And then I'm going to give it a stir, cover it up, bring it to a boil. As soon as it hits a boil, I'll turn the heat down to a simmer and we'll cook it for about 15 minutes. All right, now I'm gonna give you a second to finish that. All right, so again, keep an eye on your rice because as soon as it comes to a boil, we'll turn it down to a low simmer and then we'll set our timer for 15 minutes. Okay, so meanwhile, we're gonna chop up some tomatoes. Okay, so hopefully you have a couple Roma tomatoes. I actually ended up getting early girl tomatoes because they're in season. And I love early girl tomatoes. If you've ever had them, they're local to around here. They're super good. And Roma is always a better option over beefsteak. It's an Italian style. It's got a lot of flavor. So Roma is great. But today, this is what I got. So I'm pretty excited. So I'm just going to slice my tomatoes in half. All right, and I'm taking off that top part that was connected to the stem because that's not so flavorful. It's not so tasty. And then I'm just going to dice these tomatoes nice and small. All right, so turning it over. If you have a really sharp knife, it should be really easy to slice through your tomato. If you don't, using a serrated knife works really well. Okay, because tomatoes can be juicy and ooey and gooey. And that's fine, but makes it hard to cut. So sharpen that knife or grab yourself a serrated knife. All right, by the way, my water was boiling for my rice, so I just turned it down and I set my timer. I set it for 13 minutes just to double check it because we did soak it, so it should cook pretty quickly. So just so you know, I have it on low heat and I've got my timer at 13 minutes for my rice. Once you have your tomatoes chopped, you can go ahead and add them with all their juices into your palak paneer pot, all right, with that liquid that we have in there. So all that onion, tomato, all the spices, everything is gonna mix together. Also, at this point, I'm gonna turn my heat back on for my spinach pot. So we did have that big pot of boiling water that we started at the beginning, and that's gonna be to blanch the spinach. So I'm gonna bring that back up to a boil because that's gonna be the next step. And now is also a great time to add your chickpeas to, oh wait, nope, you know what? We're going to be, let me think about this for a second. Yeah, yes, we can go ahead and add our chickpeas to the palak paneer pot as well. So I'm gonna pull this out, open up my can, and get them to be nice and soft in this broth. Also, save your chickpea juice if you want to use it in place of an egg on something. That's always fun. But I'm going to go ahead, and I'm just going to use about half the can of chickpeas tonight for my dish because I don't want to overwhelm it. But I'll just mix it in with those tomatoes so that it can really get warm and soft and tender. All right. And then I have my spinach pot now boiling, which is where I want it to be. All right. And we're going to be blanching spinach, but it's going to happen very fast. So you can grab the same bowl that you used for the rice to sit in earlier, and we can use this to put our spinach when it rests. All right. And then ideally, if you have a colander, we put the colander over the bowl so that when we pull our spinach out from the pot after it blanches, we have a resting place for the water to really drain out of the spinach. All right, so if you have a bigger bowl than me, you're probably better off, or a smaller colander. But you want this colander to go in the bowl, ideally. So we're going to want to use at least 4 cups of well-packed spinach, okay? So in my eyes, that's about 5 ounces. So I have a 10-ounce container here. If you have a fresh bunch of spinach, that's great. Ideally, you'd use about 2 bunches. Spinach condenses very quickly, so we want to use a lot of it because that's the star of the show here. And it's going to go fast, so I want you to be ready. We're going to strain it out, and I'm going to put the colander and the bowl in here. Actually, I'm just going to put them in the, I don't know why I was thinking about the bowl. We're just going to pour it all right into our colander in the sink. So that was a silly suggestion. I was getting confused on something else. I just put my colander in the sink, and we're going to blanch the spinach and pour it right into the sink. That'll be easier. All right, so here we go. I'm going to be adding about half of my spinach here because I have about 10 ounces in this container. Bunch of big scoops. Voila. Filling this up, and the spinach is getting in there nicely. All right, I'm going to use a spoon or some tongs to move it around, and as soon as it starts to wilt, I'm going to be pouring it into my colander. So I'm already getting this towel ready to go. So it's still bright green, that's where I want it. I'm going to go ahead and pour it out. It really was only 30 seconds. It's quite heavy. Woo! All right, I'm going to go pour it out into the colander. And let all that water strain out. And next up, we're going to be blending the spinach. So I know this one's a little bit intensive with the pots and pans, but we are going to need a blender or a food processor because we're going to make this spinach nice and creamy, and then we're going to be adding it into our pot with the chickpeas and all the spices. All right. If you have a hand blender, it's super handy right now. All right, so I'm going to take that spinach now that it's had a moment to really relax and get rid of all of that water. Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and bring it over here to the blender. And you can add a little bit of broth to the spinach. We're using fresh broth though, and not the water from the spinach because the water's so hot. And we also want a little bit of flavor. So if you want to add just a dash of broth to the spinach, like a couple tablespoons, and then also a couple shakes of salt. Get it to be really flavorful. And finally, I also like to add juice of half of a lemon. And then I'm going to blend it. All right. So I'm getting a lot of flavor in there. From the broth, the lemon, the salt. The lemon's going to help keep it nice and green. You could do it with lime as well. Lime is great in this recipe. All right, here we go. I'm going to blend mine up. Okay, so there we have it. I have my spinach all blended, and I can pour that, but I don't want to pour it actually into the pot until it's ready to go. So it's going to be one of the very last things we do, and that's because we don't want it to overcook. So once you have your spinach blended, let's just keep it on the side now, let it cool down a little bit, and we're going to open up our paneer, okay? And get that ready to rock. So I'm going to slice through my plastic here, get it all open. And paneer is funny because it's like Jan was saying, there's not a lot of flavor in paneer. It's just all about being creamy, all right? It's a creamy protein, it's super simple. And that's what we're gonna be using here. And then I'm just gonna chunk the paneer. So I'm gonna slice it into squares or cubes. So I just went across mine and sliced it into about 5 slices one direction. And I'll do the same the other way. All right, there we go. And I'm gonna take them and I'm gonna put them into the pot with the chickpeas. And meanwhile, my timer is going off, which is excellent timing for the rice. So I turn that off and check the rice in 1 second once I mix the paneer in here. All right, I'm gonna let that paneer sit and start to get warm. And again, we have it on like a medium, low heat. And I'm gonna check this rice, see how it's doing. And it needs a little more time. Great. Yep, mine's still a little firm, so I think it actually needs about 5 minutes. All right, and a lot of the time it just depends on how much heat you have on the rice, plus how much water you have. Obviously, it's always a little bit different every time you measure it out, every time you turn that heat on. It's not the exact same. So you don't want to open your rice or disturb it too much because that can really affect the starches in the rice, but you do want to keep an eye on it and make sure that it doesn't overcook or undercook, right? So it tastes amazing though. Holy smokes, the cinnamon in that. I love it. So excited. So we're almost there. The last part is just getting a garnish ready. So you can grab your cilantro, and I haven't added my spinach yet to the pot, okay? But we can grab some cilantro, and I always just like to slice a chunk off the top, all right? So I just took a big chunk off the top of the cilantro. Oh, it smells amazing. I feel so bad for people who can't eat this. All right, so I just chopped up a bunch of cilantro. I'm gonna take half of it and pour it into my dish and mix it in, and then I'll keep half as a garnish to use later on. You can always add some to your rice as well, just to make it a little prettier. That's always fun. All right, so enough of that. I'm gonna go ahead now and pour my spinach into my mixture here. All right, there we go. I'm gonna take my spoon and mix it all in. So we're gonna have some chunks, some creaminess, and then we wanna give it a few minutes so that all those spices and the salt level and everything can come together. But I do recommend now that you take a moment to taste it and see how the flavors are. Okay, Wendy likes it. Think about salt. Salt is really important right now to think about, does it have enough salt? Okay, and if not, add some in there because we've done a lot of layers here, and some had more salt than others. Mine is great. I'm very happy with it. If it needs a little more acidity, you could add some more lemon. That's pretty fun. But overall, the flavors should be really potent. It should be strong. You should get a lot of those layers of garam masala and cinnamon, cumin, cardamom, all those things. And I'm gonna go ahead and check my rice now. I almost forgot about it, and it's perfect. So I'm gonna turn it off. Yours is too? It sounds like I got a giggle. All right, I love it. It looks really good. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a fluff, and then I'm just going to cover it back up and let it rest for a few minutes until I'm ready to eat, but it looks really, really good. And with that, we have quite the meal. Sometimes palak paneer has a little bit of cream in it. So if you wanted to add a dash of milk or cream, that's your thing. You love that kind of stuff, you could. But I don't eat cream, drink cream, whatever you want to say. And I think it's really good without it. Sometimes I'll add a little coconut cream if I want it to be creamier, but then it's a little more coconutty, and that's not necessarily the flavor I was looking for today. So there you have it. My favorite naan with this is a Kabuli naan. So I hope Jan's listening because she's got her homemade naan going. But I love a Kabuli naan, which means it's chopped up cashews and then chopped up dried fruits. So like chopped cherries and currants. And you fill the naan with those. And it's insane. Well, with that, we have our meal. Thank you guys. Next week's a fun one. We have Kelly coming, Kelly Powers. She's a registered dietitian. She's going to teach a more simple recipe, but it's really good. And I recommend you get some high quality dried beans and soak them. Or maybe even slow cook them for hours before, so that you have really high quality beans, because I think that's going to make a huge difference in making a really good dish. But she'll dive into just a lot of fun stuff about, the health of Mediterranean food and, how to get protein from vegetables and a lot of stuff like that. So I'm sure you'll learn a lot. So make sure you guys attend that. It's going to be a lot of fun with Kelly. She's super cool. And also, I don't know if you saw on our newsletter, but she does have a weeknight meal plan that I really like. And it's just for if you want to, these classes are usually slightly more intensive than something you can do every night. So she offers a complement with some four recipes a week and a shopping list of other things that you can use. And it's like a $15 a month subscription. So it's pretty cheap for a lot of information and a lot of time saved. So if you want to check that out, let me know.